Now, we've also been involved with transactions when you've represented the buyer. And you've gone into it's been posted as a short sale, and you have seen that there is not a third-party negotiator involved, and the agent is selling themselves. And we've come in at, several times on that where I've represented, you've had me come in to represent the seller of the other property. Tell me how that has gone over and how the seller's agent typically looks at it.
Well, typically when you first tell the selling agent that, you know, we would like to pursue this property, but not unless we have a short sale negotiator involved, you know, typically their first response is going to be, no, hold on a minute, wait a minute, who's this third party person? And, you know, I'm representing the seller, and I don't want somebody that I don't know taking over. That's typically the first response. You know, once we've had the opportunity to sit down and discuss with the listing agent what it is exactly that you do and how it is that you help facilitate the transaction, normally we don't have a problem getting them to bring you into the transaction. And really, we're going to have a much higher percentage of times when we're going to be able to close that transaction when you're involved, which is why we asked to bring you in the first place.
So on the numerous occasions where we've had this is typically exactly what happens. There's a little pushback at the beginning. They find out what's going on, and at the end of the day, the listing agent is on board because they want to close the property, of course. And
their sellers do too.
And the seller definitely gets on board because they get to talk to someone. And for the most part, they really need answers to questions they have that maybe haven't been answered at this point in time, so they get involved. The other thing that we do a lot is we really work on communication, communicating with the buyers, the sellers, the agents, and so forth. And we believe that in so doing, we get a higher success rate at closing because the buyer actually sees that progress is being made and knows what's going on.
Yes.
From your side of it as an agent, how helpful is it for us to be sending out those weekly updates, emails, and tell everybody what's going on?
It's extremely helpful. You know, when a weekly progress report is not sent out, typically as the listing agent, you're going to get multiple calls, usually from the buyer's agent, but sometimes from the buyers themselves, because you know, when we tell the buyer's agent there aren't any updates or we don't know yet, and that's communicated to the buyers, sometimes the buyers, for whatever reason, don't think that their agent's actually following up. So when actual weekly reports are sent out to the agents that they can then forward on to their clients, it reduces all of the phone calls. The other thing is that it helps keep the buyers in the loop as to what's going on with the transaction and helps to really reduce that fallout rate. Because the problem that a lot of people have with short sales is the buyers get tired of waiting for a response from the bank. And usually it's because of their lack of knowledge that anything's even being done with it. They think, well, I made this offer and now everything's been forgotten about, and why would I wait around if this is never going to come to fruition or going to happen? When the weekly updates come out, they know that somebody's still actively working that file, and they're kept up to date as to what's happening with the transaction. So in all of the transactions that we've done together, I don't remember one time where we had a buyer quit and just walk away because they got tired of waiting. When you talk to other buyer's agents that are out there, that's the most common thing that they say is, I don't want to do a short sale transaction because the buyer's never going to wait that long.
Right.
And we haven't had that issue.
We typically have two things that occur. One is with permission from the listing agent and the buyer's agent, we will include the buyer and the seller on the email. So it actually, you don't even have to forward it, it's sent.
Right.
Often we actually set up a communication then even with the buyer and the seller. If the buyer wants to call me because they are getting frustrated or nervous, we welcome that. That's not a problem. This is kind of one of those situations where we don't have sides, we don't have a dog in the fight. Our whole job is to get this thing closed, and we do a good job at that.
Yeah.
So,
and that part's really nice too, because it takes out any of the combativeness that might normally exist because you're only representing the seller or only representing the buyer. Really, in a short sale transaction, everybody's working together toward the same end. You know, where you're not worried about saying the wrong thing to one person or the other.
One other question I have is, you had mentioned the timing on this. As you're aware, we get involved with the seller the moment the listing is taken.
Yeah.
We like to do a sit down with them, we go over the expectations, options, we pull together paperwork, and we pretty much take over the file from that aspect from then on.
Yes.
We send things to the bank, we get moving. Our whole goal is to have information to the bank prior to you actually getting an offer in place. That seems to speed up the process
Immensely. Yeah.
From your perspective, I mean, how many more do we close just because we're that much quicker?
We close a ton more, and one of the biggest reasons is because the process starts much sooner, and therefore we're able to get a response from the bank much sooner, and we don't have that extra 30 to 60 to 90 days lag time up front where the buyer's just waiting, and we're hoping that the buyer's going to stick around and actually want to close this transaction. I love having you involved for a couple of reasons. One, I don't have to do anything. You do it all for me. You package up the entire offer, all of the necessary paperwork, the hardship letters, the financial statements, everything, and submit that to the lender or lenders. And also, you get it done, like you mentioned, prior to me actually receiving an offer, because let's face it, when you send that transaction into the bank, it's going to sit on somebody's desk for a while before they even look at it. Right. So you're cutting down on that time that it takes from when we actually get an offer to getting a response, because you've already been proactive about sending everything in before that. And without that one key step, the majority of the buyers are going to walk because they don't want to wait that long.
That's right. Well, I appreciate you coming today. Is there anything else you would add, like to say?
I just want to reiterate that, like I said, I wouldn't even contemplate doing a short sale transaction or listing and relying upon myself to be the one negotiating with the banks. We've proven that your success rate is significantly higher than other agents that just want to take on the negotiations with the banks by themselves.
Oh, great. Thank you very much for coming by.
My pleasure.
Take care.
Thanks.